A wealthy CEO strolled through the park, enjoying the tranquility, when he was drawn to the sweet sound of three little girls singing next to an empty jar. The next lesson he encountered transformed his existence completely. Henry Milton strolled leisurely through the serene city park, the sound of his polished shoes softly crunching on the gravel path. The summer air felt warm yet tender, wafting the subtle fragrance of freshly mowed grass and blossoming flowers. Lofty trees danced gently overhead, their verdant leaves murmuring secrets to each other in the soft wind. Henry's light brown hair fluttered gently in the breeze, and he narrowed his eyes against the warm golden sunlight filtering through the leaves above. He donned a sharp button-down shirt, sleeves casually rolled to his elbows, paired with tailored slacks that suggested his typical corporate attire. Yet today he found himself free from the confines of business calls, meetings, emails, and market analyses. Today he was just taking a stroll. To an observer, Henry could easily appear to be a man who possessed it all. A keen intellect, a commanding role, and riches that seemed limitless. He held the position of CEO at one of the nation's rapidly expanding investment firms, recognized for his strategic acumen and unwavering drive. Yet, in reality, that drive had stripped him of everything: serenity, bonds, and even fragments of his identity that had become unrecognizable. Recently, the stillness in his penthouse apartment seemed to weigh down on him. This park, featuring its weathered benches and families meandering through, provided a tranquility that was beyond his means to purchase. In the distance, the sound of children's laughter echoed, their joyous squeals mingling with the gentle splashes of the fountain as they chased after shimmering bubbles. A woman ran by with her dog, earbuds in, immersed in her own universe. Yet Henry remained oblivious to it all. His thoughts drifted, meandering through recollections as worn and distant as the photographs he had long since set aside. He reflected on decisions taken, messages left unanswered, and one summer, in particular 6 years past, that continued to linger in his mind for reasons he could never fully grasp. He halted beside a modest garden bed brimming with daisies and lavender, inhaling deeply. The aroma was surprisingly calming. He was uncertain about the reason for his presence here today. Perhaps it stemmed from a sense of remorse, perhaps a sense of monotony, perhaps, beneath the surface, he was on a quest for an elusive truth that remained unspoken. No matter the cause, he remained. As he stood there, allowing the world to swirl around him, a distant sound reached his ears, a sound poised to alter everything. The sound emerged quietly at first, tender, reminiscent of a breeze whispering through the branches. Yet it was no mere wind. A voice resonated. No, more than one. Henry tilted his head ever so slightly, squinting as he sought to pinpoint the origin. The melody floated through the park, a gentle thread of light weaving through water, both delicate and unexpectedly harmonious. It was a melody from long ago, a forgotten folk tune that eluded his memory, yet it tugged at a deep-seated part of him with a gentle persistence. Intrigued, he trailed the sound, allowing it to lead him down the path, weaving past benches, trees, and groups of picnickers scattered about. As he rounded the corner by the fountain, he spotted them. 3 little girls lined up on the stone walkway, their voices intertwining in a melody so sweet that time itself appeared to stand still. They appeared to be around 6 years old, clad in uncomplicated summer attire that seemed slightly oversized for their small frames. Each of them sported tousled blonde hair gathered into carefree ponytails, their large brown eyes gleaming with a delightful blend of focus and happiness. A glass jar rested before them, devoid of contents save for a handful of crumpled dollar bills and a scattering of coins at the bottom. A hand-drawn sign lay beside it, crafted in crayon, a heartfelt tribute to Mom. Henry experienced a sudden pull in his heart. He rarely allowed his feelings to break through, particularly in front of others. Yet there was something about the moment that was undeniably captivating. They sang not for the spotlight, not for spectacle, but with genuine emotion, as if every note carried a deeper significance beyond mere sound. Individuals moved along, barely pausing in their stride. A pair paused briefly, exchanged courteous smiles, and continued on their way. A man casually tossed in some coins without a glance. Yet Henry remained motionless, utterly captivated. He observed their expressions, brimming with vitality and determination, and recognized the harmony between them, as if they had been harmonizing since the moment they found their voices. Their voices lacked refinement or formal training, yet they possessed a beauty that perfection could never achieve. Unfiltered, sincere, and profoundly relatable. He edged a bit nearer, careful not to intrude, and settled on the rim of a low planter facing them. He settled into the moment, hands resting on his knees, absorbing the melody as it enveloped him. Their voices soared on the final chorus, and as their eyes swept across the park filled with hope, he felt as though he was observing something profoundly sacred. As the song drew to a close, their voices softly diminished, reminiscent of the delicate winding down of a music box. The young women shared triumphant looks and stifled laughter, their faces glowing from the exertion. Henry stood motionless, perplexed by the profound impact of the performance, aware only that it had resonated within him. As one of the girls bent to adjust the jar, their eyes locked, and he experienced an unexpected chill, not from the wind, but from something deeper. It was an inexplicable phenomenon. They seemed recognizable. He remained unaware that this moment would dismantle the carefully constructed framework of his existence. He sensed that a change had occurred. It all began with a melody. The applause trickled in, a few isolated claps from a passerby and a gentle laugh from an older woman with her dog. Yet Henry stayed motionless, hands on his knees, gaze locked on the girls as they gathered themselves. They exchanged hushed words, then settled cross-legged on the pavement, passing around a half-empty bottle of water. The jar before them contained just enough for a single cup of coffee, yet none of them appeared disheartened. Rather, they appeared to take pride, as though they had accomplished something genuinely significant. Henry stood up from the planter and approached them with deliberate slowness, ensuring he didn't alarm them. As he drew near, one of the girls lifted her gaze, her eyes wide yet composed. The others turned their eyes in her direction, and for a brief moment, all three were captivated by his presence. In their expressions, there was no trace of fear, only an intriguing curiosity, as if they were weighing the value of engaging with him. He smiled, a departure from his typical corporate grin, revealing something gentler, more genuine. "You girls sing beautifully," he said, his voice unwavering, yet a subtle quiver echoed from within his chest. The song truly resonated with me. The figure at the center, the most daring of the trio, offered a subtle nod. "Thank you," she replied with a courteous nod, then cast her eyes toward the jar. "We are performing songs to gather funds." Henry gazed at the sign, taking in the wobbly crayon letters and the charming sketch of a woman with curly hair and a broad smile. He inquired softly about your mother. "Is she unwell?" The young women exchanged glances. Then the same daring one, who appeared to represent the group, shook her head. "Absolutely not. She simply puts in a great deal of effort. She constantly feels fatigued. We aim to create something special. Perhaps consider arranging a delightful surprise for her." Henry lowered himself, placing his arms on his thighs to meet their gaze at eye level. "What type of surprise are we talking about?" "A necklace," another girl chimed in. Her voice carried a gentler, more uncertain quality. "A piece adorned with a heart. She gazes at it in the shop window, yet it remains untouched by her purchase." Henry gave a slow nod. A deep ache settled in his stomach, a sensation long forgotten over the years. These were not young ones seeking sympathy or charity. They were making a genuine effort, wholeheartedly striving to bring happiness to someone dear to them. And they were approaching it in the manner they were most familiar with. "Is your mother aware that you're out here?" he inquired with caution. The girls shared another glance, and the first one replied, "She's over there." She gestured towards a bench by the coffee cart, nestled within the park's embrace. A woman sat bent over a laptop, her fingers racing across the keyboard, a paper cup of coffee next to her, long hair cascading around her face like a veil. Henry turned his gaze toward the indicated direction, squinting as he attempted to discern her features. The woman appeared youthful, perhaps in her late 20s or early 30s, yet she bore an air of fatigue. Not merely fatigued in body, but utterly depleted, as though she had been bearing an immense weight for an interminable stretch of time. There was something about her that stirred a flutter in his chest, an elusive recognition that left him pondering its source. He faced the girls again, remaining crouched before them, and made an effort to steady his voice. "Is this a place you frequent?" "Only occasionally," remarked the reserved individual. "When Mom is busy with work and we have a day off from school. We enjoy the art of singing." The third girl, who had remained silent until now, leaned in slightly and said, "Do you want to hear another one?" Henry parted his lips to reply, yet the words faltered. His eyes wandered once more to the woman seated on the bench. A sensation coiled within him, an emotion that arose not from logic or recollection, but from a deep-seated intuition. He sensed a subtle movement beneath his feet, as if the earth itself was gradually changing form. "Indeed," he uttered at last, his voice scarcely rising above a murmur. "I would be delighted to listen to another." Yet, as the girls poised themselves to sing once more, Henry found himself unable to divert his gaze from the woman in the distance. He was still unaware of her name. Yet, a deep-seated awareness stirred within him, signaling that his existence, every meticulously arranged fragment, was on the brink of unraveling. Henry found himself lost in time, the reverberations of Celia's words swirling around him, each one carving a more profound impression than the one before. "They belong to you." The phrases felt straightforward, almost subdued, yet they struck with the force of a storm. It felt as though a hidden part of him had been suddenly revealed, and now that it was in the open, he found himself unable to turn away from it. His gaze wandered again to the girls, who were now gathered in a circle on the grass, their laughter bubbling over something one of them had just shared in a hushed tone. They appeared utterly ordinary, so unrestrained, as though the world had never attempted to twist or shatter them. He found it perplexing how such a purity had endured against all odds. Celia gently settled back onto the bench, sweeping away the spilled coffee with the corner of a napkin before nudging her laptop aside. Henry stood there, uncertain, much like a visitor who had stumbled into a stranger's abode without an invitation. He longed to be by her side, to pose countless inquiries, to unravel the mysteries of the time that had slipped away, yet he sensed an unspoken barrier that held him back. Thus, he remained upright, suspended in a moment that balanced between regret and wonder. "You really didn't know?" she said after a long silence, her tone firm and tinged with incredulity. "I didn't," he said, his voice husky and flat. If I'd known even for a fleeting moment, I wouldn't have," he faltered, coming to the understanding that no words could alter what had already transpired. "Why was I left in the dark?" "I told you," she said, her voice laced with a blend of sorrow and controlled irritation. "I have sent messages. I dispatched emails. I visited your office once, do you recall? That was a time when your calls were filtered through a receptionist, as if you were of noble status. I made an effort, Henry. But the instant I discovered I was expecting, you had already departed, heading to London, then Tokyo, and then who knows where else. Your decision has been made. I simply needed to find a way to navigate my own." Henry flinched, not due to the harshness of her words, but because their truth cut so deeply. He recalled that year with striking clarity, a whirlwind of consecutive meetings, restless nights in opulent hotels, pursuing contracts and partnerships across the globe as if they were fragments of an incomplete puzzle. He recalled immersing himself in tasks to escape the weight of his emotions. At that moment, he realized the destination of all his attempts to flee. He murmured, his gaze lingering on the girls, "They look just like you, yet those eyes, they belong to me." Celia turned her attention to where he was looking. Her expression became gentler, yet a hint of wariness remained beneath the surface. Indeed, they posed numerous inquiries. They questioned my constant fatigue, wondering why we lack the things that other kids possess. Yet they remain silent about their grievances. Not a single time have they inquired about their father. He felt a deep pang of sorrow at the thought. Is it because you never shared that with them? She responded with a sense of uncertainty, explaining that she simply didn't know how. I had no intention of being dishonest. Yet, I found it impossible to reveal the truth to them, especially when I was uncertain about your desire to be involved in their lives. I hesitated to open a door that might only shut once more. Henry eased himself onto the bench next to her, deliberately maintaining a distance between them. The aroma of spilled coffee mingled with the scent of warm grass, creating a unique atmosphere. They stood in quiet observation, their eyes fixed on the girls for what felt like an eternity. I can't repair what I overlooked, he stated. However, I wish to give it a shot. I wish to understand them, Celia. I wish to reconnect with you. She gazed at him intently, and he could perceive the weight of time in her eyes, the sleepless nights, the solitude, the resilience it had required to nurture 3 daughters on her own. Yet he perceived something beyond that, a brief glimmer, a flame that remained unextinguished, despite all that had transpired. I'm not sure what you anticipate, she murmured softly. This is not a film. You can't just arrive and expect to be the savior. I'm not here to play the hero, he stated. I've arrived at this moment due to the discovery of something I hadn't realized was missing. Now that I've discovered it, there's no turning back. She faced him, her expression a mystery, teetering between wariness and a flicker of something perilously akin to hope. After so many years, they found themselves no longer at odds or unfamiliar with one another. 2 individuals stood at the brink of a fresh beginning, filled with a sense of unease yet bursting with potential. A girl from the grass called out, waving toward them. Celia offered a gentle smile. Henry also did. And even though no resolutions had been reached, and no promises had been made, both of them sensed that a change had occurred. Not everything that is broken needs to remain so. The following morning, Henry found himself before his bathroom mirror, gazing at his reflection as if it were that of a stranger. His visage was recognizable, the defined jawline, the subtle lines framing his eyes, the same meticulously groomed stubble. Yet there was a change lurking in the depths of his gaze. He sensed it, as if a thread had been tugged free within him, and now everything was coming apart, not in chaos, but with intention. He opted not to wear his typical suit. Instead, he opted for a cozy navy sweater paired with jeans, garments that had remained untouched in his wardrobe for months. His calendar was devoid of any board meeting, and there were no international calls vying for his focus. Today he was returning to the park. Upon his arrival, the girls had fallen silent. They sat on a blanket beneath the shade of a tree, sketching with short, vibrant pencils on creased sheets of paper. Celia sat nearby, her laptop shut, a book perched on her knee. She glanced up at him, her expression momentarily inscrutable, cautious yet no longer defensive. She offered him the faintest nod, a subtle gesture he interpreted as an invitation to come closer. The girls caught sight of him as well, and without hesitation, they rose to their feet, exchanging whispers filled with the playful secrecy that only children of their age can muster. The audacious one, Katie, he had discovered, approached him with a keen squint of curiosity. "You're the man from yesterday," she stated, her tone unwavering. Henry beamed. "I exist. So you must be Katie." She inclined her head just a bit. "How did you come to know my name?" "He mentioned that your mom told him. I once knew her many years back." Lily and June, the other 2 girls, approached. Their faces mirrored each other perfectly, yet their distinct personalities began to emerge through subtle actions. Lily held a paper drawing close to her heart as if it were a precious gem, while June remained poised with her hands clasped behind her back, observing him with quiet intensity. A lump formed in his throat, yet he willed himself to remain composed. "Would you like to join us?" Katie inquired. Henry blinked, taken aback by the unexpected invitation. "I'd like that," he murmured softly, gradually settling onto the blanket beside them. Celia remained silent, observing from her position, the book resting untouched on her lap. She remained silent, refraining from clarifying his identity or the reason for his unexpected appearance in their morning routine. Henry recognized that this was an examination, not of his words, but of his actions. He dedicated the following hour to engaging with the girls, responding to their ceaseless, inquisitive inquiries. What actions did he take? Was his preference for chocolate or vanilla? Had he ever been on a horse? Was he capable of whistling? Was he skilled in the art of drawing cats? At one moment, Lily passed him a crayon and encouraged him to create something extraordinary. His effort to create a butterfly was greeted with a symphony of laughter, which, oddly enough, didn't faze him in the slightest. They presented their creations to him. Vibrant crayon rainbows, cheerful suns, and an illustration of Celia grasping all three of their hands. There was no father depicted, only a vacant space next to the sun. He remained silent on the matter, offering no remarks. He was certain it wasn't a mere coincidence. Eventually, Celia rose and stretched, approaching with deliberate, careful steps that conveyed a blend of emotions. "They like you," she murmured, her arms folded tightly across her chest. "I like them," Henry responded. "Many." She gazed at them, embodying a blend of pride and weariness, infused with a fierce love that seeks no acknowledgement. She confessed that no man had ever stayed, her tone devoid of blame, simply truthful. Even those who made an effort didn't stick around for more than a few weeks. They failed to grasp the significance of being present for someone consistently. Henry gazed at her, grasping the significance of her words. "I'm not going anywhere," he declared. "I'm not requesting anything at this moment. I simply wish to exist in this moment. If you would permit me." Celia paused for a moment, then offered a subtle, nearly undetectable nod. A nod that suggests uncertainty, implying that the outcome remains to be determined. It exceeded his expectations. The sun drifted lazily through the sky, and for the first time in years, Henry found himself not glancing at his watch. He remained on the blanket, allowing the girls to weave grass into his hair, while they spun enchanting tales of magical realms and unseen companions. He was oblivious to the passage of time until Katie pulled at his sleeve and suggested, "You should return tomorrow." A surge of emotion welled up within him at the sound of those words. He vowed that he would. For the first time in ages, his words held true. Henry fulfilled his commitment. The following morning, he reached the park just as the sun began to rise above the treetops, illuminating the grass with long golden rays. He arrived with a quaint picnic basket brimming with muffins, juice boxes, and whimsical paper napkins adorned with cartoon dinosaurs. He found himself uncertain about the preferences of 6-year-old girls, having spent almost 20 minutes in the grocery aisle pondering the perfect choice. As soon as the girls caught sight of him, they dashed over with peals of laughter, enveloping him in a whirlwind of arms and inquiries. To his astonishment, Celia beamed from her customary bench. It was understated, careful, yet sincere, and it brought a sense of calm within him. Time and again he returned. He arrived regardless of the weather, whether the sun was shining or clouds loomed overhead, whether he was well rested or running on fumes. He began to immerse himself in their routines, attuning to the rhythms of their world. Early hours in the park, creative afternoons, tales shared beneath the tree. He discovered that Lily had a passion for bugs and could identify more types of beetles than he ever imagined, that June despised socks and always managed to find an excuse to remove hers, and that Katie was convinced she could communicate with birds, engaging in full conversations with robins. They were all remarkably unique, yet their bond was so strong that they often completed each other's thoughts and seldom disagreed, save for the occasional dispute over who would claim the final strawberry from the basket. Henry never attempted to clarify his position. He arrived without any elaborate displays or commitments. He arrived, attentive and eager to absorb knowledge. He assisted them in constructing twig forts and endeavored, though unsuccessfully, to grasp their clapping games. He brought books and read aloud in whimsical tones until they dissolved into fits of laughter. At times, he found himself sitting in silence, marveling at the fact that these 3 little girls had been a part of the world for 6 whole years without his presence. Celia started to ease, gradually, like a slow melting that defied haste. One afternoon, as the girls sketched mermaids in the dirt with sticks, she passed Henry a folded piece of paper. She stated it plainly, their schedule. Just a heads up about when ballet is scheduled. And medical consultations. He opened it as if it held profound significance. Thank you, he remarked, mindful of his words, cautious not to rush the moment. Later that week, she allowed him to accompany them home. Their apartment, though compact, exuded a sense of order, brimming with laughter, books, and a well-loved couch draped in an array of mismatched blankets. The corridor was adorned with illustrations, each accompanied by vibrant crayon names displayed on the doors of their rooms. A fourth door stood slightly ajar, revealing a mattress on the floor and a heap of laundry in need of folding. He lingered before it for a moment that stretched just a bit too long, and Celia took note. It's not perfect, she remarked, gliding past him. Yet it is all we possess. Henry remained silent about the peeling paint and the cracked tile in the kitchen. Rather, he remarked, you've created something truly exquisite here. She gazed at him, her weary eyes narrowing just a touch. I created it by myself. Indeed, he acknowledged. And you've accomplished more than I can comprehend. I simply wish to be involved in it at this moment. She remained silent, yet she offered no resistance to him. That evening, he assisted with the dishes as the girls harmonized in the background. He dried the plates and wiped the counter with a familiarity that suggested years of practice. As he departed, June discreetly tucked a sticker into his pocket, a shimmering star adorned with a cheerful, smiley face. Because you are discovering, she murmured, as though it were a hidden truth. That night, Henry found himself in his vacant apartment, shining, frigid, and steeped in quiet, and came to the understanding that he felt no longing for any of it. It's not the view of the skyline, the expensive wine, or the imported furnishings. He longed for the chaos. He longed for the sound. He felt their absence keenly. The following morning, he carefully packed away 3/4 of his wardrobe, sold several paintings, and reached out to his real estate agent. He no longer required a stronghold. He required a door that remained ajar. Summer flowed onward like a tranquil stream, each day seamlessly blending into the next. What started as simple visits evolved into a habit, and then transformed into something more profound, a routine, a sense of belonging. Henry found himself drawn to the park each morning, no longer requiring a reason. The girls anticipated his presence, and he obliged. What shifted, however, was not merely the reliability of his presence, but the manner in which space started to expand around it. It felt like, piece by piece, Celia was rediscovering the art of breathing with him close by. She maintained her distance while he engaged with the girls, refraining from stepping in as he assisted them in resolving a disagreement or shared another chapter of their beloved fairy tale. Instead, she started to place her trust in him, not entirely, not without reservations, but sufficiently to let out a breath of relief. On a sweltering afternoon in late July, the heat enveloped the scene like a heavy shroud, as the girls reclined in the grass under the shade of a tree, using leaves to fan themselves and leisurely sipping from their water bottles. Celia arrived late, visibly flustered, her hair hastily twisted into a bun, her shoulders tight with tension. Henry instantly sensed that something was amiss. She sank into the shade next to him, her eyes dull and weary. She sighed, removing her shoes. Lost a client. They expressed admiration for my work, yet their cousin was in need of the position. Discount for family members. You're familiar with the experience. He didn't, not truly, yet he nodded all the same. She wasn't seeking counsel. She simply required an attentive ear. Do you ever feel like you're climbing a ladder that's actually a treadmill? She inquired, tilting her head toward the sky, endlessly toiling yet feeling stagnant. Henry cast a fleeting look in her direction. I dedicated years to ascending one. Mine simply brought me to a stark, windowless boardroom and an empty chest. Her lips curved ever so slightly at that. Almost a smile, yet still holding back just a bit. They lingered in the stillness for what felt like an eternity, the sporadic laughter from the girls serving as a gentle reminder of the reasons behind their continued efforts. Later that week, Henry inquired with Celia about the possibility of spending the afternoon alone with the girls. With a pause, her eyebrows arched in uncertainty, she finally acquiesced with a quiet yes. Her voice trembled with a fragile trust, yet she agreed. He led them to a quaint bookstore featuring a small cafe tucked away in the back, where towering shelves touched the ceiling and the aroma of aged paper blended with the scent of cinnamon rolls. The girls dashed through the aisles, eagerly picking tales filled with dragons, hidden gardens, and cosmic unicorns. They lounged on beanbags, crumbs scattered around, bickering about who would claim the spot nearest to Henry, who found himself wedged in the center, clutching a copy of the Velveteen Rabbit, with 3 golden-haired heads resting against his shoulders. At the register, as he completed his purchase for the books, Katie glanced up at him and remarked, with a weighty sincerity, "You would make a great father." He was momentarily at a loss for words. He lowered himself to the ground and carefully tied her shoelaces, his voice failing him in that moment. A few days later, Henry revealed to Celia something he had kept hidden from everyone for a long time: his vulnerability. He invited her for coffee, just the two of them. She consented with a hint of hesitation. In a serene corner cafe, she cradled a lukewarm cappuccino while he fidgeted with his drink, stirring it endlessly before breaking the silence. "I sold the condo," he stated matter-of-factly. Celia arched an eyebrow. "That place holds a special charm for you." "I believed I did," he responded. "However, I came to understand that it was merely a highly costly environment for solitude." She remained silent for a moment, simply observing him. Thus he pressed on. "I purchased a home. It's not much, but it does come with a yard. Additionally, there are 3 bedrooms. Her fingers gripped the cup firmly. "Do you really believe you can simply purchase your return to our lives?" "No," he said softly. "I believe I have the potential to prove myself, if you grant me the opportunity." Her gaze mellowed just a touch. Not absolution. Not at this moment. Yet something more inviting than what came before. She remained still, neither offering a smile nor turning to leave. That sufficed. As August rolled in, the girls had started creating illustrations that featured him. Simple drawings of Celia and her friends, along with a man sporting tousled brown hair and a cheerful grin. They referred to him as H, using their clandestine symbols, etched in chalk upon the pavement. One afternoon, June inquired whether he had a favorite bedtime song from his childhood. Upon his agreement, she insisted he sing it out loud. He was utterly dreadful. They absolutely adored it. Henry had transcended the role of a mere visitor. He was integral to their cadence. Their days unfold. The sound of their laughter. Their chaos. One evening, after Celia's freelance shift had run late, he tucked them in, and from her pillow, Lily whispered, "It's nice you're here now." He remained composed. Only when the lights dimmed and solitude enveloped him once more. Yet, on that night, the tears held no sense of remorse. They represented all that he was finally evolving into. The final weeks of summer arrived with a gentle glow, a warmth that enveloped everything in a languid embrace, making the world seem slower, sweeter, and caught in a moment of stillness. The park, once a realm of exploration, had transformed into a well-known stage, no longer merely a venue for serendipitous encounters, but rather a sort of second sanctuary. At this point, Henry was more familiar with the girls' routines than he was with his own. He understood the way Lily would hum softly to herself while coloring, how June always took the initiative to push the swing, and how Katie, who was usually the first to voice her thoughts, often fell silent when it truly counted. He had picked up the art of braiding hair, managed to tidy up glitter without losing his sanity, and mastered the skill of carrying 3 girls simultaneously as they imagined the grass was lava. Celia observed the events as they transpired, lost in her thoughts. She had never envisioned this, never allowed herself to dream of it, but now it stood before her, undeniable and vivid. Henry had not only remained, he had expanded into the corners of their lives with a patience and humility that no earlier version of him had ever known. She maintained her defenses, allowing them to gradually ease rather than collapsing entirely. Trust was not a door she flung wide, but a window she eased open slowly, allowing the light to seep in bit by bit. And yet it had come to pass. The anxiety of his potential disappearance had started to diminish, giving way to the undeniable reality that he was here to stay. On a Saturday afternoon, they organized a quaint picnic in the park, marking their final gathering before the school year commenced. Celia prepared sandwiches, Henry contributed a kite, and the girls were adamant about donning matching flower crowns they crafted from clover. The sky arched expansively, devoid of clouds, as they lounged on a blanket beneath their beloved tree, the very spot where Henry had first witnessed their melodies take flight. It seemed like an eternity had passed. It seemed as though it was just yesterday. After lunch, Henry led the girls to the open sky to fly the kite, while Celia remained behind, reclining on the blanket with her eyes shut, absorbing the joyful sounds that danced through the field. He returned quietly, the sound of his footsteps almost lost in the stillness, and took a seat beside her without uttering a single word. She lifted her eyelids and glanced in his direction. He appeared serene, yet there was an underlying tension in the way he nervously toyed with the blades of grass. "This morning they posed a question to me," he remarked after a brief pause. All three of them harmoniously synchronized. Celia inclined her head. "What was their inquiry?" "They inquired whether they could refer to me as Dad." She took her time before responding. She rose gradually, flicking away the blades of grass from her skirt, her gaze sweeping across the field until it landed on the girls, who were now struggling to free the kite from a bush. "And what did you say?" she inquired. He mentioned that he had informed them they were allowed to. "However, that is contingent upon your comfort with it." Her breath hitched ever so slightly. For an extended period, she remained silent. Then her hand reached for his, not with flair, not like a moment from a film, but in a straightforward and sincere manner. She intertwined her fingers with his. "I'm fine with it," she murmured gently. "It seems they have been aware of your identity for some time now. Perhaps I have as well." They lingered in quietude for a moment, observing their daughters tussle with the kite, tumbling over one another in fits of laughter. It was chaotic and boisterous and just right. Later that evening, in the cozy confines of Celia's apartment, the girls unveiled a song they had been diligently perfecting in secret. They stood before the living room window, hands intertwined, offering a tender, slightly unsteady performance of a melody that Henry couldn't place. Upon completion, they took a grand bow and gestured towards the coffee table with flair. There lay a card, meticulously crafted by hand, adorned with an array of stickers and shimmering sparkles. At the heart of it all, inscribed in the deliberate, large letters characteristic of young children, were the words, "Welcome back, Dad." Silence enveloped him. He was unable to. He knelt down, enveloping all three girls in his embrace, as if time itself had paused, settling perfectly in that moment. From a distance, Celia observed, her arms folded and her gaze distant. After a long time, she finally sensed that she wasn't shouldering the weight by herself. Life stretched out before them, filled with school mornings, dentist visits, minor injuries and outbursts, challenging days and even tougher nights. Yet, there would also be celebrations of life, enchanting tales at dusk, leisurely weekend breakfasts, and kites that soared high one moment and tumbled down the next. And through it all, they would remain united, imperfect, challenging, however, complete.